Welcome to Pain to Purpose, the podcast where we transform our pain into power, peace, and purpose. I'm Sarah, your hope dealer, inspirational guide, and the storyteller in this podcast. Each week, we dive into inspirational stories of overcoming grief, custody battles, and trauma. Together, we'll foster transformation, resilience, and claim your personal responsibility for your story. Our stories offer hope, encouragement, and community support, guiding you toward better health and wellness. Join me as we discover actionable ways to leverage our struggles, find healing, and rise like a phoenix. Tune in to uncover your purpose, embrace mental health, and serve others, all while finding the strength to keep going. Welcome back to the Pain to Purpose with the Side of Hope podcast. I am so glad you are here. If you have listened to the previous 4 episodes, setting up the stage of my story, as well as what this podcast will be about in coming episodes. So it's going to be a mix of me talking, interviews, and we'll probably have Chris back as a guest co-host as well, because he is amazing with everything he has in his repertoire. So the first thing I would like to start with is, if you have not left a up to 5-star review, I would greatly appreciate that. Whether you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, if you want to leave a quick review, that would mean so much to me. Second of all, if you go to my website, hoperosespeaks.com, there is a community page that you can join. And if you're looking for additional support during this time of your chapter, that is an option for you as well. As we kind of dive into trauma and tragedy and unjust situations, things that don't make sense, grief and loss, maybe you're listening to this and you are in the beginning stages of a separation. Maybe you've been in legal divorce, family court for many years. There's so many different stories that we all have. And so whatever stage you are at, I want you to know that you are not alone. I know that's thrown around a lot, that statement. It can kind of get lost, but I want you to hear it again. You are not alone. If you've listened to the first couple of episodes, you have heard the story that I have went through. I have been now on this journey coming up on 6 years. It has been extremely painful, extremely difficult. And I was kind of thinking back to those beginning moments when me and my baby were abandoned. He was 6 months young at the time. I was left without a home, without necessities, without a car, without money, without, really, a lot of basic resources that we need here in the States that we are accustomed to living. And I was like, what? Now that I'm 6 years removed from that specific day and week and month, what would have been helpful to me in that time? And I can tell you that I did have some amazing people in my life at that time. The angel parents were just so supportive of what I was going through. There was a couple other friends that were just aghast at what was happening. It seems like every day. One day it was like the car was taken away. The next day it was like, that he, took all the money out of the joint checking account and drained it, leaving you with absolutely nothing. What good father would do that to his child? I cannot answer that because I am not that type of person. And so as I kind of reflect back on those moments, really one of the things that helped get me through was the support of others in receiving that support. And I think a lot of times because of our conditioning and, our own upbringing, we can be hesitant to accept support, to receive that support. our own conditioned beliefs and responses, maybe that we're not worthy of the support that we are being offered. There's a variety of misaligned beliefs that we have in accepting support. And so one of the things that when you are going through a difficult situation that doesn't make sense right now is to accept support, receive support from others, and let this be a nourishing mineral for you. If you are, struggling with receiving support, maybe this is a good time to get a journal and a pen and just write down what it feels like to receive kindness from others. And that can be a beginning process of your healing journey. In this personal growth space, a lot can be thrown at you at one time. And when you're in survival mode with multiple children, maybe you just have one, regardless of the number of children you have, the life that you are now kind of thrown into, whether it is overnight, whether it's been a long time coming, you've probably been in survival mode for quite some time. Survival mode is not just relegated to how am I going to pay the bills today? It's also our beliefs and our way of thinking and really what got us to this situation in this present moment. And so survival is worry, it's shame, it's anger, it's the low level vibrations. That is survival mode. And so one of the things I'm really passionate about with this podcast and sharing my message, sharing my story of how I am continuing to transition and transform out of survival mode into thriving and just not being a survivor, although that is a label that can be applied. It is really turning my pain into power, peace, and purpose, turning your pain into power, peace, and purpose. What does that look like? And I wanted to kind of discuss today, like, how can we use this situation for our betterment? Whether you are in a custody battle, whether you have lost a loved one, a family member, a friend, there's so many different types of tragic situations. I have certainly been through my own tragic situations. That is kind of the purpose, no pun intended, of this podcast. And so, you're probably thinking, okay, Sarah, like, I can't see the forest for the trees. How in the world can I see and view this situation for my betterment? And I would encourage you to, if you're not driving, to maybe just take a pause and close your eyes if it feels safe and comfortable to do so, and place your left hand on your heart, your right hand on your belly, and take a deep belly breath into the hand on your belly and just breathe into that and see if you can just feel that sensation. See how that feels in your body. If it feels tense, if it feels comforting, if it feels constricted, confined, maybe it feels liberating for you. Maybe this is the first time you've noticed your breath. And to allow your nervous system the opportunity to use this present situation for the highest good of all. And I say that with love and compassion, because if you've listened to the first couple of episodes of this podcast, you will know that my child was stolen from me a couple years ago. I don't know where my baby is. He's now 6. He will always be my baby. That's what us mothers call our offspring, our children. And we've had zero contact for no reason other than my ex just continues to withhold him from me. In my personal journey, I have, really dived into, okay, how can I use this situation for my betterment, not in a place of disassociation or spiritual bypassing, but like, what is this situation giving me an opportunity to grow in, to love in, and to really, transcend? And so, my encouragement to you as you think about this concept of how can I use this situation for my betterment, even for my ex's betterment, how can I use this situation? And one of the things that I have done is realizing that my ex is hurting so tremendously that he has to hurt other people. And he has hurt a lot of women. He has certainly hurt my child by doing what he is doing to keep my son from his mother. He is a very wounded individual. He is not healed. What's my responsibility in this situation? What do I have control over? I don't have control over a lot of things, but I do have control over my response. And one of those responses is I can send him love, even though what he has done is despicable, it's disgusting. To lie to his attorney, to the courts for his own detriment, really, in the large scheme of things, and to, steal my baby from me, that's on him. What is my response to that? And it's taken, months to get to this place of sending love because, when one person heals, we all heal. And when one person hurts, we all hurt. One person wounds another person, that wound impacts all of us. The collective, all of us, when we all begin to decide, oh, I can send love to this individual. Now, it may not be your ex, it may be somebody else. I have had to send love to the judges. I have had, and this is all like energetic stuff. I have had to send love to the attorney that did this basically fraudulent paperwork and realize that they are only operating in their lack of consciousness. They have not evolved to a place of transcendence. They are still steeped in their wounds, their hurt, their pain, their generational trauma, and they are continuing to play it out. And that's one of the things we'll discuss on this podcast of really dismantling family court. Family court is only around because there's two parties involved. They need a divorce or they want, custody. And of course, there's many other facets to family court. There's, foster care systems. There's CPS. It's quite a entanglement of entities under this one umbrella. But to keep it kind of simple for this, we'll just go with the family custody divorce side of things. So without getting into too much legal jargon, there's typically a husband and wife that are getting a divorce. And so because they have a marriage license, it has to be divorced, as how we operate here in America, at least. And so that process involves family court. Now, we have attorneys on the scene, and quick caveat, I am reading one personal growth or similar book a week this year, 2024. And the book I'm reading right now is a fabulous book called A Radical Awakening. She actually touches on family court and attorneys and personal growth as an umbrella statement for all of this. Attorneys are only there to continue the entanglement of who is right and who is wrong, who's going to win and who's going to lose. And when we come at family court from winning and losing and competition and manipulation and splitting, assets and material possessions and even children, which are not possessions, but that's what the court views them as 50-50. There's no 50-50 with children. And I just think of how many children are living out of a suitcase. They don't have, a stable home because of this 50-50 arrangement. Anyway, back to my point. Attorneys are typically there fighting for their client. There's always going to be a person who loses. And so my vision is to get to a place where both parties can say, you know what? Like, this is not doing me a service. This is not doing you a service. This is hurting our children. And why is my need to have, 50-50 in terms of anything, whether it's material possessions or children or cars or houses or money or who gets the kitchen rug and who gets the bedspread? I mean, it really becomes quite petty. I believe this is an opportunity for reflection on both parties' side. And if you're listening to this podcast, I applaud you for taking this step in saying, how can I not be a victim in this matter, but how can I choose to surrender what I deem winning and really stepping into a place of what is my ability to respond in this situation? Do I really need the kitchen rug? Do I need the trash can? And of course, there's lots of individual stories that you have, that we all have, of, what we believe is right, what we believe is wrong. There's obviously safe parents, there's abusive parents. And of course, I am dealing with, an abusive ex, just based on his actions that anybody can see. And maybe you're dealing with the same thing. My meditation on this and my vision is that men and women both heal. We both say, you know what? I don't need to be right in this situation. You can have the bedspread. You can have the kitchen plates. While our relationship may not have lasted, we can do better for our kids by healing whatever needs to be healed in our lineage, in our own personal lives, transmute that generational trauma, and move into a place where there's healing, where there's growth. When you can't see the forest for the trees, you're, very attached to the situation at hand. And if you can zoom out a little bit and picture your life in 5, 10, 15, 25 years, is the kitchen plate really going to matter? Obviously, the safety of our kids always matters. And that's exactly what I attempted to do to protect my offspring, just as biological moms. That is something that's biologically innate in us, to protect our offspring. And when that is threatened by our ex, by court, attorneys, it's difficult to take the hummingbird view. I understand that firsthand. And that survival mode is all we know. My intent is to empower you to transition out of survival mode into a mode of operation that is powerful, that is peaceful, and that is purposeful. So having a new perspective. We can have a new perspective on the situation that's happening, whether you are dealing with family court, divorce, separation, custody, tragic accidents, whatever the loss, grief that you have gone through, that you are experiencing or have experienced. What perspective can you take that is empowering to you, that doesn't suck you back into the mud, the clay, the darkness? I'll share with you one perspective I've had in having my precious child stolen from me. Is I have had this time as a previous solo single mom for a little over 4 years with very little help. I had very little capacity to really do much other than survive. Now that I'm kind of, I'm still a single mom by identity, I have had this time to heal. And so my perspective was, oh, thank you. Thank you, universe. Thank you, X, for giving me this time where I don't have to worry about childcare. I don't have to worry about buying clothes. I have this time to work on my jigsaw puzzle uninterrupted. Of course, I would love to have my baby with me. And if I stay in that sadness, if I stay in that story, that doesn't get me to where I know I'm supposed to go. And so, what perspective can you adopt in this moment, in this time of transition, when you are going through grief and loss and, really bewilderment? How can you adopt a new perspective? And if you need help with a new perspective, send me an email, get connected with me on Instagram at Hope Speaks or on Threads, and we can help find what your perspective is. The second thing I would like to impart with you is an opportunity for personal reflection. What led you to this moment in time? Can you give yourself permission to look back at all of the choices, all of the little things that led you to this moment today? This requires some level of responsibility, and that I know that word can be triggering for a lot of individuals, but responsibility really is the ability to choose your response. It doesn't mean the other person is right. What they did is not justified. It just means what is your ability to respond to that situation? You get to choose your response. And as I've reflected on the choices that have led me here today, I have uncovered a lot of generational misaligned beliefs, a lot of lineage baggage that has been handed down through generations that no one currently has taken responsibility for and healed. And I guess the universe has selected me to do that. While some of this work can be painful at times, it's also very freeing, because once you kind of recognize, like, oh, that's why I did what I did, not in a blaming, shaming, guilt way, but just my system only knew that response. My system was only operating out of fight, flight, freeze, and fawn, or the other F word. They all begin with Fs, which I always find very interesting. When we realize that, these conditioned responses have, really passed down from generation to generation, it's like, oh, this is an opportunity for me to have personal reflection on the choices that I have made in my life. Again, not from a place of blame, judgment, guilt, or shame, but simply from a place of curiosity. That is leading into our third point of this podcast, is reclaiming our power. We take our power back when we own responsibility for the choices that we have made, as well as the responses to what has happened. So many get caught up in, this was done to me. They did this. I'm just this helpless victim that it's not right. I have this identity that I need to defend. Woe is me. How could this happen? Instead of an empowering, powerful stance of like, oh, this came into my field. What is my ability to choose my response? Do I respond to this situation with curiosity, with grace, with love, with kindness, with an understanding that this reality that's presenting itself in our physical world is what happens, as my coach says, it's the last thing that happens in the chain. So everything kind of happens in the energetic field first. There's some other things that happen as well. And then the last thing is it happens in the physical, and it works both ways for good things, quote unquote, good things, and quote unquote, bad things. And so anything from like stepping off the sidewalk to having your child stolen from you to having a car accident, like it's the last thing in the chain that happens. A powerful response, pain to purpose, and which includes, pain to power, is really taking a powerful approach by saying, yes, this happened, and my ability to respond to this is one of curiosity, instead of begging for sympathy, for accolades, whatever it is that drives the ego self, which, caveat, ego is all based off of trauma. And so when we heal the trauma, when we take that step of like, I have power in this situation, I have power not to be manipulated by the system, I have power not to be petty with my ex, I have power not to be angry over what is happening. Sure, there's righteous anger. I think righteous anger is a little different than visceral anger. Really reclaiming your power. Those are 3 things to consider moving out of survival into a powerful state, having a new perspective, viewing this as an opportunity for personal reflection. And number 3, reclaiming our power. How can this situation allow me to become a healthy mother? How can this situation allow me to become a healthy parent, a healed human? When we do this, this is healing. This is the healing work. And it's not always sexy, let me tell you, as I have been doing this work for quite some time. It's not always sexy. It's not always fun. But when you can walk and live and breathe in a world where you are at peace, where you feel empowered and not a victim to your circumstances, but in charge of your life, and really using the 3 things that I've mentioned: a new perspective, an opportunity for personal reflection, and reclaiming our power. This will allow you to shed the layers of survival and into a life that you are called to live for the highest good of all. I always like actionable items, and I'll give a few of them for you now. I've already kind of alluded to a few of them, but tangibly, like how can you gain a new perspective? One of them is writing. Perhaps it's in your phone. I really like pen to paper. It can be super cheap. You can get, free paper from a medical office. If you are having medical appointments, there's always how many different places give out like pads of paper. So if you are low on money, there's always free little tablets out there that you can pick up a pen, pick up a piece of paper, and just start writing. If you want to spend a couple more bucks, you can get a pretty journal and just begin writing in that. Maybe it's a couple sentences, maybe it's a page. Writing will help rewire your brain to move out of survival state. And so the question that I would ask of you is, you can write this down of, what is my current perspective and what is my new perspective? And you can move from victim to victor. And so kind of journal on that question. The next thing to do, and this can be done with your children, is to begin a daily and ideally evening gratefulness routine. So in the morning, there's free apps. The Intelligent Change has the 5-minute gratefulness journal app. You can use those prompts. They have a paid version and they have a free version. I personally use the free version. That is a really great way to move out of survival. And it's a great practice, great routine, healthy habit to begin with your children as well. And when we cultivate an attitude of gratitude, our inner world slowly begins to change. And I will say, if you are in a very dark spot, like I have been many times, I will even challenge myself to write 100 things that I'm grateful for. Again, this is a free exercise that can allow you to move out of survival into a place of power, peace, and purpose. And the last one I will leave you with is to get out in nature. Nature is incredibly healing. It's like a nature bath. We used to live in nature all the time, and I know in some situations we don't have nature as accessible, but even just being by a tree, being in a park, it is incredibly healing for our nervous system, for our survival mode. And, bring your kids with you. If you are alone, get out for a hike. But yeah, being in nature is incredibly healing. It's soothing. It allows you to move out of survival into a place of alignment with what you are supposed to do, which is to live a life of love and kindness in the highest service of all. This is not meant to be in survival mode all the time. It's incredibly draining for yourself, but also for the collective consciousness. And so when we heal, when one person comes out of survival mode, everyone starts to gradually come out of survival mode as well. With that, I will wrap up this podcast for today. Thank you so much for listening. Again, be sure to check me out on Instagram if you have questions. If you want to connect further, I have a community. I also have a Facebook page I can connect you with as well if you are a single mother who is needing more support during this time of custody, divorce, family court. Please reach out to me. Website is hoperosespeaks.com. I am at Hope Rose Speaks on Instagram. And if you've not already left a 5-star review on the platforms, please do so. And if you found value in this podcast, please share it with your social network. Share it with a friend who might be going through their own situation that they don't know how to make sense out of it. I will see you next week. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful and blessed night. Thank you so much for listening to the Pain to Purpose podcast. If you got something out of today's episode, please take a screenshot and share it on social media with your takeaway. Don't forget to tag us at Hope Rose Speaks. Have a beautiful day.